Welcome, everyone. I'm Mary Ellen Slayter, and I'm the CEO and founder of RepCap. We're a content marketing agency that specializes in working with insurance, financial services, and HR tech companies. And I am super excited to host this webinar today with one of my favorite, do I call you a frenemy, competition?
Sure. All of the above.
The person I know who likes to talk about insurance and content marketing more than I do. Like, Mindi, welcome.
Yay. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I appreciate your including us in this and inviting me. And I'm so excited for our talk today. I'm Mindi Zissman. I'm the president and founder of Zissman Media. We're also a content marketing firm that does really just focuses on risk, insurance, and compliance. And just like Mary Ellen, we both have this background in journalism. We're born journalists, and now we are content marketers and really focusing on financial services, risk, insurance, compliance, etc.
And actually, I'm going to start off because I asked you this the other day when we first met, because I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, which for anybody who wants to know, like, if it's important that you're active on LinkedIn, this is a good answer. This is actually our entire relationship is based on LinkedIn. So
100%. Exactly. Mary Ellen and I met on LinkedIn and have, had our whole relationship on LinkedIn. Exactly.
Yeah. So how does a perfectly nice person like you wind up becoming an insurance marketer? I always love this because I don't think anybody, we go to journalism school, we do different things, and then we get into this. And I know you're super passionate about this topic, as am I, because I think insurance is where all the interesting conversations actually happen about a lot of key economic things. But tell me how you got into this really quickly.
Sure. Great question. So like I said, I'm a trained journalist and realized after I graduated college, my plan was to go to Afghanistan and be a stringer for the AP. And I quickly realized, I don't think I want to go to Afghanistan. That's not really where I want to spend my time. And so I started working in trade publishing right away. And I worked actually at a magazine for architects, engineers, and contractors. And so that was my first industry and did that for a while. I went off on my own in about 2004. Like I told you, Mary Ellen, when nobody was doing content marketing, it wasn't a phrase. Nobody knew anything about it. I used to tell people I'm a technical writer, and they would say, "Oh, did you write the packet that came with my urn?" And I would say, "No, I did not." So I'm not writing about appliances all day. Anyway, so I did that for a while, and my business is all word of mouth. It still is, which LinkedIn, as you said before, is just the greatest mouthpiece. But anyway, so I did that for a while, and a client of mine moved over to commercial insurance. And she brought me with her. And I said, "Oh, sure, I know insurance. I have insurance too. We go to the doctor. I bring that insurance card. I know insurance." And we both very quickly realized that's not the same insurance. So that was about 9 years ago. And I have fell in love with commercial insurance in the last 9 years and really, really kind of drilled down my practice to just do risk, insurance, and compliance because, like I said, I love it so much. And why do I love it? I always say it reminds me of those days when I was a reporter. Whatever is going on in the world of business, that's what's happening in insurance. Whatever is happening in insurance, that's what's going on in the world of business. And that's really why I love it.
So it's similar for me. I was a financial journalist before I worked for the Washington Post for many years as a financial journalist. Then I worked at Smart Brief, and finance and insurance was all kind of under sort of like my umbrella. And I think one of the things I love about it is some of the issues that I actually care the most about, right? Aside from, there's economics, these are very personal decisions. The moment, and I'm going to set aside the B2C piece because I think you and I are both primarily B2B.
Right.
And I think about things like sustainability. I live in South Louisiana. And so I've always paid attention actually to no one has better data on the real effects of climate change and what we have to do to mitigate it than the insurance companies. If you want to know where the real trouble spots are, go ask the global reinsurance companies.
No, it's true.
It's like, what does it cost to insure this? Like, nobody has better data, right? So I actually love talking to actuaries, and I love talking to economists inside insurance companies because they know what's up. And so I feel like my duty is to get that stuff that's out of their head and out of their dashboards and out into the world, because I think it's really critical to help people make nuanced decisions about risk. Risk is nuanced. It is never black and white. And it's what can you handle? And I think that's what's really interesting to me about this work. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So
I agree. And I think that's why so many different businesses can talk about the same topics over and over, right? In insurance, right? How could you talk about supply chain risk with, 5 different clients that you work with? Well, the reason is it's so nuanced, and each insurance business has their own type of clients, their own niche, and they're gonna approach it from that direction. So I think there's so much opportunity. We talk so much about how there's so much noise in content, right? There's so much content, but I think that the key, and I think this is to your point, the key to doing it well is to specialize, that each business specializes to their niche and their specific target audience. And that's how you can do it really well, even when you're talking about the topic. So I agree.
Right. Well, let's jump in. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we're going to talk about why content marketing specifically matters so much for insurance brands. You and I are both really, really passionate about this. And then the second piece is like, well, how can you grow? Like, what does this actually have to do with your business, right? It isn't just a nice to have. We're not just publishing for fun. And then look at some of the different types of content marketing that insurance brands can produce. And I'm also going to specify, we're talking about brands in the sense of like larger companies. We don't necessarily mean an individual agent. I think individual agents certainly contribute to their brands, and personal branding is important here. But this is really about what does it mean as a good size insurance company, like mid-size and above, to do this work. So sorry if your agents can stay, but but this is where you get ideas, where you pitch up to the marketing team. So first I want to ask you, why does content marketing matter for insurance? Why do you think this is important?
Right. So I think that in today's world, and we can talk about this, really, this is this whole trust factor. Everyone's looking for who they can trust. And there's so much information out there about people looking here. Let's just go with this slide to your point. So many people, so many B2B buyers are out there looking to self-serve. So they want to know who they should partner with, why they should partner with you, and they're going to try to figure it out all by themselves. So before they've even talked to anybody, they're going to know if you're right for them or you're not. And so many outlets play into this. Social media plays into this, trade magazines, podcasts, videos, blogs on your website, your email newsletter. We'll talk about distribution in a little bit too, but there are so many things that play into this know, like, and trust factor, which I want to continue to talk about as well.
Yeah, we can dig into that a little bit too, because I would say as part of that trust piece, I think this isn't an age thing. I think sometimes people think, oh, young people don't want to read anything, but Trust Radius has been doing this research for a few years. And look, no one actually wants to talk to anybody until they're ready. And so I think this is should be a real wake up call for B2B sales. I think we've already seen insurance. I think we've already seen some of this in B2C insurance, where the pressures that individual agents have felt like, no, I don't want to talk to a local agent. Some people do. I do not. I actually chose my current personal insurance choices based on the fact that I could get most of what I needed done on their website. And I think even as a business owner, I still think that way. And I'm not saying that a personal relationship with that account manager, that salesperson, it's not going away, but there's so much vetting beforehand. It's unreal. And it's old people too. It's not just kids. It's not a kids today thing. Gen Xers, they don't want to talk to anybody like the most. Like we don't have time for that. We have kids and aging parents.
Everything's happening. The B2B sales cycle is mostly happening online. It really is. And you can see here with these stats here, 60% of B2B buyers are literally reading between 3 and 7 pieces of content before they even reach out to a salesperson. Everybody's being pre-qualified. I see it happens in my own business, and I'm doing, like you said, Mary Ellen, the same thing in my own B2C buying, right? My own commercial choices, my own buying. I'm doing the same thing. I'm pre-qualifying everybody by going on their website, talking to somebody, hearing about why this business might be good, then going to their website, going to read something that they wrote, checking out a video they did, something they said. That's what everybody's doing. It's happening in B2B and B2C.
And this isn't a bad thing. I think sometimes there's this anxiety. I know that in particular, if you're traditionally a really strong producer, like a very experienced, you might feel some anxiety about this, that, oh my God, they're reading all this stuff and why don't they want to talk to me? But here's the thing. If you think about the idea that these 3 to 7 pieces of content that you wrote that could be read by thousands of people, that allow them to essentially sort of pre-qualify them into that conversation with you, this replaces many hours of you trying to talk them into trusting you, right? It just means that when the conversation happens, it's less likely to be a time waster. they're more likely to already be bought into your point of view. And so you can get to the business of closing a little faster.
Right. And people are looking for, back to that trusting, and this is that same topic, what you're saying, people are looking for help, right? So if you can get out there to them with free information and something that feels helpful, well, that's going to pre-qualify you for a sale even more. It's not the sales pitch that they're looking for anymore. It's help. And it's empathy, it's understanding, and trust. It's all of those things.
And so what kind of content are you producing with your clients these days? Because I think for me, it's also become remarkable how varied this has become. I mean, you and I both been in this business for a little bit. My company started in 2011, also pretty early. And I know that for me, the types of content have radically changed. I mean, there's still some bread and butter. Yeah, we still write white papers and we still do position. But what are you seeing? Like, what do you see that people are actually consuming before they make these decisions?
Yeah. So and here's the thing about insurance. I love insurance dearly, but they're a little bit slow to change also, right? I'm sure you all know that. Everybody's feeling that. So I would say we're still doing a ton of traditional media, blogs, white papers, ebooks, that kind of thing. I know you're doing even more podcasts and videos now. I will say something that I am seeing that's more trending is to take the webinar, to take a presentation and move that into something else and vice versa. So I'm saying blogs we write, and then we're writing a script for that to become a video, a 1-minute video, a 30-second video that entices the person to then go to the blog, or vice versa. A webinar that nobody wants to replay the webinar. But what you do want to do after webinar is reach back out to those people who are on the webinar with some additional information. So maybe we're taking a nugget from the webinar and then that's becoming something else, like a bigger video or a longer blog post, or that's, we're taking an ebook that we wrote and that has a little bit of information that's attached to the webinar in some way. And then we're sending that out. So I'm seeing that a lot. And that's a big trend, in seeing different types of content on the same topic that's supposed to re-engage that audience over and over.
I think this is actually to a really good point. I think that we as marketers get sick of content faster than our audience does. And they also need it in more versions than we typically think of, right? And so I think one of the way I like to look at it is I think of it as cornerstone. You have a big idea and you create a cornerstone piece of content that supports that. And then your job should be to wring maximum utility out of that, because it's so much work, especially when you're leaning on producers and subject matter expertise to get that information, right? These are busy people. So the people who know the most, you want them talking to the clients. So if you can get that one thing out of them, right? In many cases, that's going to be, if webinars are easy for you, if you're for your SMEs, if you're strong, start with the webinar, right? If they're good at doing interviews,
then start with that. I agree with you. That's great. Right.
Something big, and like move ahead with that. And then, just really don't give up on it too soon. This is kind of one of my I got like sort of, I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but it's like a thing that I've noticed. It's like we come up with ideas and we start putting them in the market and then we pull back before we even get a chance for the audience to hear it. And so I think put it out there, make the webinar, write it up into a guide, write the blog post, do the social clips. You're making so much content. And so I would encourage you to think it like all the way through. Sit with it long past the point where you're personally bored with it. That's probably when it's starting to work. So
no, that's a good point. And I like your point in the beginning about these subject matter experts are short on time. That's something I see all the time. So if you can get 15 minutes with somebody, 30 minutes with somebody, what can you do with all of that? And it's going to be different every time. And that's really the thinking cap you have to put on. What can we do with this information that we have? Sometimes it's a checklist. Sometimes it's good enough to be an ebook. Sometimes you can take that and put it with something else and make a blog post. Sometimes you can harness their video that you got. Maybe you did a video interview, or you have like some audio and you can use that on social. Like, I think there's just so many, like you said, opportunities. This goes to repurposing. This goes to just taking information and saying, okay, how can we be creative with this? Okay, this is a funny slide. I have a great story for everybody on this. So a lot of times, and I have this conversation with businesses, with business owners or marketing people all the time. What is the ROI in social? So many times we say, okay, we're going to post a bunch of times for, let's say, a month. And then that doesn't go anywhere, right? I got no leads from it. Nobody reached out to me. Nothing happened. So this is an example actually from my business. This woman, Rachel, she reached out to me and she said to me, hey, I'm not sure if my colleague mentioned it to you, but I know that, Jim reached out to you and you have a call with him. And I'm not sure why I never realized that you specialize in content for risk and insurance. Now, doesn't it look like Rachel and I are pretty good friends, right? She doesn't introduce herself. She says, hey, she says she didn't realize that I specialize in this. So that means we know each other for over time, for a long time. Well, I have news for all of you. I've never met Rachel. Rachel and I don't know each other. When she sent me this DM on LinkedIn, I literally had no idea who she was. I had to call a bunch of friends, a bunch of business associates and say, do we know Rachel so-and-so from, this place, this, town in Florida? And people were like, no, I have no idea who she is. And I'm thinking, how do I know her? How do I know her? And it took me a few minutes to realize, oh, she knows me. And that's only because this was after I had been posting on LinkedIn 3 times a week for 9 months. Now, the kind of point of interest that everybody says is that the ROI in social is about 6 to 9 months. So if you've been posting, if you're out there putting your content out, whether it's video, blog posts, whatever you're posting on social, if it's been 3-4 months, your boss is upset, how come we haven't seen any returns on this? Just hold tight. It really is true that it's really 6 to 9 months. This was the first client that I ever got on LinkedIn. And like I said, Mary Ellen and I know each other from LinkedIn. I would say about 50% of my business comes from connections that I've made, or even people telling other people about me on LinkedIn. So there's so many, this is the new word of mouth, right? This is the new, someone picking up the phone and calling their buddy and letting them know that they met you or whatever it is, or they had a great experience with your business. It's all happening, especially for a B2B on LinkedIn. But anyway, I love always using this post or this screenshot because it just proves the fact that it just takes time, but there is this know, like, and trust factor that comes from people seeing you show up again and again and again.
And I want to note that this is true while we're talking about using examples from our business, because sometimes it's easier than like sort of pointing to the clients. This is also true in insurance, right? And in consultants as well. Anywhere where what you're selling is your expertise, this is true. And what I don't want to see you do, what does not work, is sending people or having your agents send and your producers send DMs to people that are copy paste. Hi, I'm so and so, and I want to introduce myself, and this is what I do. Do not do that. Like, I know that there are tons of companies out there that tell you to do that, and it feels like some sort of quick fix to get leads. It's actually really annoying, and it will get you blocked by your buyers. Your buyers actually aren't, especially the higher up the chain sort of you're going. If you're looking at enterprise and risk, please do not engage that way. But if you can get your producers to share content with perspective, both share it on your company pages, but get the producers to also share it inside their SMEs inside on their personal LinkedIn, that's what yields this. It is not DMing people. It is not copy pasta DMs telling people, let me know if you want to book a meeting. No one wants to book a meeting with someone that they've never heard of, especially to buy a $3 million risk, an insurance policy. It's never happened.
I think the litmus test for that is just seeing yourself as a human being and seeing B2B buyers as human beings too. So if you would not want, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like some kind of service that you have at home. Like if you wouldn't want your landscaper to reach out to you on Facebook and sell you, if that's not how you'd like to find a landscaper, then that's not how the B2B buyer wants to find you either. So if you think about your own B2C experiences, that should 100% be informing your B2B choices also. That's what I think. I think B2B purchasers are people, and we have to see them as B2C people in a B2B buying role.
So actually, this fits into one of the questions from Jamie here. So any feedback on the successfulness of making our business a little more human? That's one of the ways. Like that's the mindset, like sort of set that you want to shift into, is realizing people often think B2B buyers are somehow more analytical, or more logical than B2C buyers. And I would actually say B2B buyers are more emotional. Actually, they're even more emotional. They're just slightly different emotions. The emotions are, I don't want to be embarrassed among my boss. I don't want to let my boss down. I don't want to, look bad in terms of my career. It's like the stakes just got higher. There's more feelings. Higher stakes don't mean fewer feelings. They mean more feelings. And I think this is one of the little secrets around insurance and in risk, is that because you do have inside the business, we have these incredibly analytical people, like analytical brains, and they do make decisions with spreadsheets. Actually, I'm married to an accountant.
So am I. That's so funny.
People do make decisions based on data and like spreadsheets, but most people do not. And so when you have actuaries, like the goal is like they might make those decisions that way, but the way that even that head of risk, at that big hospital, yes, you need to bring the numbers. You need to show this is going to save you money. This is going to protect you against this risk. But in the end, this is a feeling. Risk is a feeling, like as much as it is a number. And I know that insurance people, this when you're selling in some ways, but to consumers, we forget this in B2B. It's just that what's on the line is actually bigger, right? Yeah. It's like you get fired. You don't just have the wrong car insurance for a week. You actually get fired.
Right. You made the wrong choice.
20,000 people can lose their jobs because you made the wrong call. And if you don't think there are feelings in that, like you should get a different line of work, because like there's people.
I think every line of work, I really think every line of work does that. And I like your point about those numbers. The numbers are important, but where I think that they're important, I think it's like a sandwich, right? That the beginning is about feelings and connection and trust. And the middle is maybe about a little bit more using your brain and looking at numbers and saying, is this really a viable partner for us? And then the end is that same thing as the beginning.
It's back to feelings.
Again, back to feelings and about trust.
Right. Yeah. Can I trust this person? Because what are we selling people here? And so I think my answer to that, really is like, to be human is actually look at the impact on the customers. So when you write a case study, yes, do case studies where you say the numbers, you want to prove the results, but also look for the case story, right? What is the narrative about the impact that this happened, that working with you, what impact did it have on their business? You've got to have a point A, where they were, what did they go through, and what was the result? If you don't have that, just saving me X number of dollars is like, cool. Thanks. Like,
but that's it. Right. And you know what? I love what you're saying. At first I wrote down case story. I love that. That's really great. And I'll always cite you that you gave me that, but no, but really seriously, I love your idea about like the what, you know what I mean? Like what is the story here? You have to have the numbers isn't everything. And I'll tell you, with the hard insurance market that we just went through, that we're starting out of, that's the answer also to why you need content. Because it's not just, there have been periods in the last, 30 years where insurance relationships are just about pricing. Who can get me the best price? Who can get me the best limits for this? But now, because of the hard market, it's not about that anymore. It's about showing your competitive advantage. It's about being consultative. It's about helping people. How can you help your insurance? How can you help the people that you're backing? That's what people are looking for. It's not the best price anymore, because the best price isn't really possible, or everybody's kind of in the same boat in terms of pricing. So now when pricing is off the table, what are you doing for them? How do they know they can trust you? That's really, I think that's really what it's about.
Who knows something that I don't, basically? Do you know something that I don't? And I think the other thing, I'm kind of noodling on this a little bit just to give you an example, and I'll drop some of these in the examples when we send the follow-up email, just so you have them. A medical malpractice company that we worked with, it's a kind of a captured sort of state quasi-governmental entity that we worked with. Their best piece of content is like essentially these claim studies that they put out, where they looked at what happened in situations in specific claims. And they also that's a story. What happened in this claim and what you can learn about it, that's a story. That's a kind of a warning, right? It's like, oh, and here's how this one went down, like that's good to know. But the other thing they do that I think is really wonderful, and this is fundamentally content marketing at its finest, like you can use content marketing to reduce claims. And so if you are a medical malpractice, insurance provider, and you're working with large hospitals, and you provide content and training, whether virtually, or written, that then reduces like slip and falls. And yes, did you save them money? Absolutely. Did you reduce their claim? Absolutely. Did you also like materially like improve some people's lives? Also, absolutely, right? That meant fewer accidents. That meant less harm. That's also stressful on the people who work there, right? It's like, if you can reduce injuries, and you think about workers' comp is not fun, but like keeping workers safe is a deeply human piece. And insurance, there's a role for insurance in that. So,
and safety professionals, loss control professionals, 100%. And that's so much of, I would say, like that first tier type of content that we're creating also, which it sounds like you are too, where, okay, how can we help our businesses and the customers that we work with reduce risk? That's it. And your SMEs know that. They know it cold. They've got it in their head. They've got their list of best practices. You just have to get it on quote unquote paper or video. Or
right, a checklist, something. Let's talk about how we do this a little bit. So you've actually already kind of introduced like your model here of know, like, and trust. Do you want to talk a little bit more about this, or you want to kind of move into some of the nitty gritty?
Sure. I love this picture. It's just like, somebody falling backwards and who's going to catch them. So if you're the business that can catch people, you have to show people how you do that. How do you really get them? Do you understand them? What are their pain points? And this goes, I know we're going to talk about this later also, but this goes to what topics are you going to use to talk about? What are things that you are going to get out there and talk about? What are the pain points of your clients? What are your customers' biggest issues? Is it regulatory risk? Then talk about it. Is it local risk for local, laws or, issues? Talk about that. Is it, some overarching industry topic? Talk about that. How do they know they can trust you? If you're always selling to them, like Mary Ellen was saying before, nobody's thinking they can trust you. But if you talk to them with helpful information, these best practices for risk management or loss control, that's what people want to hear. That's how they know they can trust you.
And here's the cool thing. If you're a marketer and you're great producers, I'm just going to tell you, they're doing this already. They are already consultative in the way they sell. They're already asking lots of questions. The best producers in insurance are always like deeply curious people. So as a marketer, you want to make friends with them because you don't need to guess what their pain points are. Yes, you can do a survey, and we can actually talk about how some of these surveys, like one of the examples I always like to share is like Aon's Global Risk Report is a pretty great, they've done one thing there, like people read that, like risk managers at the enterprise level looked at that as definitive data. They absolutely trust it. That is peak thought leadership. It's also great intel if you're an Aon producer, right? And luckily they publish it, anybody can look at it. So we don't have to guess what the pain points are. Then if you want to get really nitty gritty about your specific clients, especially if you're using an account-based marketing model, if you're in marketing on insurance and you are not texting, you're not on text basis with your best producers, it's time to rethink your working relationship. Like get in there, because what they're hearing and what they're learning, that's what you want to write about. That's the pattern that you're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And all that is, like you said, is that's a phone call, that's a text. What are the biggest issues when you go to sell to somebody? What are the biggest issues they're telling you that they have? That's 100% what you should be writing about. And if you're not, then you're writing just to yourself. I've worked with marketing that do all the time. Let's talk about our product. Let's write about what we do for people. If you just write about what people need to hear from you, that sells itself. And then when they get to the bottom of the article, oh, who wrote this? Oh, these guys know a lot about this issue I'm having. I should call them. That's that know, like, and trust. It's exactly what it is.
Okay. I love this little chart. This is your chart and you can talk through it.
So I found part of this on LinkedIn and I kind of adapted it a little bit and changed it. But, back when, we can all date ourselves, but I'm old. When we were kids, how did we find out about a company? We looked through a magazine or TV or whatever we were watching, and we saw the advertisement. And we all remember their jingles and their numbers and, 1-800 Empire or whatever, like we all remember like the jingles. But today, that's not what's selling people. Today, the winners are, and we've talked about this already, being honest instead of being superficial, showing your expertise instead of hard selling, teaching instead of, pitching your product, serving your clients instead of just doing advertising. Now, I don't want anybody to be upset about this. I'm not against advertising, not at all. But I do think that content can play a role that advertising just can't. It's just not the same thing. And again, trust, we've talked about this a bunch of times, versus people being skeptical. Just like we said to being human, when I get pitched to, I'm skeptical. When someone offers me information for free that I really need because it answers a pain point that I'm having, I trust, right? So just seeing yourself in everybody else is really what you need to do. And this is how we're acting. Like I said, in that B2C space also, we're all doing the same thing everywhere.
I'm going to jump ahead to a different slide because this answers how I feel. This is how I feel about advertising. I'm not against advertising either. If I've got great content, it's like I'm not doing paid social to get leads, okay? I'm doing paid social to make sure that the people that need to see my content see it. That's it. That's it. I'm not paying it. I have no expectation that any ad that is going to actually on social is going to drive leads, but it does make sure, because this is something you should know, organic social is not likely to be enough. Like it's enough to keep a boutique agencies, like me and Mindi here busy. But if you're a global insurance brand, I mean, what you post on organic social is going to get you, we're looking at 1 to 2% of everybody who follows you is going to see it once. That's not going to drive the needle. So if you get something and it's really great, throw some money behind it. Like make sure that whatever you're doing with content has an appropriate proportional budget to the strategic importance of the client that you're trying to get in front of. And I often think of it like if your buyer is like the head of risk at, a hospital, like a large hospital system, it's like they're not going to accidentally see your content.
Right.
Well, that doesn't happen. Like that doesn't happen.
Do you see that slide about the, if the tree falls in the forest? Okay, so you literally played exactly into this piece. I always joke about this one's actually funny because it's got tweet, snap, pin tag. But I say this all the time. If the tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did they hear it? So I have a great story. I have a client who we created a blog post and he was going to put it. The whole goal of it was going out in his e-newsletter. So he said to me, okay, I'm not going to post it on the website until the day of the e-newsletter. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, then it'll be fresh content. People will finally see it. And I said, I have news for you, honey. No one's going to see it if you post it unless you send them that email newsletter. Nobody's, canvassing your website's blog to see what's your latest blog post. That's not what your buyers are doing all day. So the only way they're going to be able to see it is if you send them to it directly, whether that's from social or your email newsletter or some other kind of search, and they get to your website and they see your blog. But nobody's looking at blogs that aren't being put in front of their face. There's just too much going on. Oh, I can't hear you, Mary Ellen. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muting because we had some feedback. There was a little bit of feedback on the one, so I wanted to spare you all that.
Oh, no problem.
So where should you get ideas for content from? I think there's actually ideas everywhere. This is a common question that we get, but we talk about client pain points and challenges. There's a little discussion in the chat where somebody said, well, instead of DMing them asking for a meeting, can I DM them and ask them what their pain points are? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you no, actually. And here's why. I don't want to talk to you until you've already proven that you know what my pain points are. And one of my pain points is that I'm really busy and don't have time to talk to DMs from strangers about whatever they want to. That's still very much driven by your need, right? But I'm telling you, if you have a little patience with it, if you start, what those pain points already are. I'm telling you, if you're any good at your job, you know what they are. Start writing about those things on LinkedIn. They will see the things that you're writing about, and you will begin to develop a reputation as someone who knows about this topic, so that when they have a question, they DM you.
Right. You're clearly the source to go to. You're the for sure answer. Why? Because you're talking about all the time. Literally in my business, that's exactly how Mary Ellen and I connected and how we started doing this. Mary Ellen said to me, I want to do, something about content marketing for insurance companies. And she just reached out to me. You're the person that I wanted to talk to. How did she know that? She and I had never had a live conversation. We've DM'd on LinkedIn. We've gone back and forth on comments on each other's posts. The only reason she knew that is because I've put content out there and she's recognized it. And the only reason I knew about her expertise is the exact same reason. She puts content out all the time. I'm commenting on her posts. She's commenting on mine. We've established ourselves as authorities. That's really the other piece besides just the trust. Is that when you're constantly getting out there and giving people the information they need, you are the authority. You become the authority. You grab the authority. No one's going to give it to you. You've got to.
And if you don't, I think sometimes people get anxious about comment, I got to post every day. Actually, the comment, we talk about commenting on each other's things. Yes. Comments are highly underrated, because here's what you have to do in order to leave good comments. If you spend some time every day going through LinkedIn, if you're following the people who are in your market, right? If you follow your target buyers, see what they're posting, see what they're interacting with, and you comment on their post, because we are vain creatures, including people who buy very expensive insurance policies for their businesses. If someone is posting that content, they want engagement. But don't come in and pitch, right? Just come in and answer the question. right? Or just come in and comment. It's like, oh man, if they comment on a trend that they're seeing, you're like, you're so right. This is what I've noticed. Or sometimes you can be contrary about it too. It's like, I mean, Mindi and I've had conversations like that. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know that that's what I've encountered. I've seen this, it's like, don't be mean or anything. You're not there to troll people. But if it's thought leadership, it can't be thought leadership if somebody couldn't disagree with it. That's the definition of thought leadership to me. It's like, if you can't argue about it, it's not really thought leadership.
Right. So it's just regurgitating what's already happening. Yeah.
So if you feel a little stuck, I mean, my number one thing is to tell you, number one, start just following the other people who are outspoken. Get involved in your associations too. I mean, if you're not following RIMS content, if you're in insurance and you're not engaging with the stuff that RIMS is putting out, even if you're not a member, you should really get engaged. It's great content. There's good podcasts. I mean, they publish so much awesome stuff, and much of it is outside of like the membership portal. So you definitely hop in there. Just go follow people and comment. Talk to your junior reps. Actually, like talk to your junior producers. Like the conversations. David Baker, who I probably talk about David Baker every single day, and this is kind of embarrassing. But if you've never read David C. Baker's The Business of Expertise, I highly recommend it.
Yes,
you are in the expertise business. You think you are selling insurance. You are actually selling your expertise. And he has a great piece in there where he talks about how it's virtually impossible to read your label. I mean, well, you can't. You literally cannot read your label from inside the jar. So you don't even know what you know. And so one of the most beautiful things sometimes is like, until you start to teach a junior person in your field, like the things that you find yourself explaining to them, you don't think that that's important, but it's usually they don't know it, right? Your customer doesn't know it. I love to listen to recordings of calls between great producers and their customers and their clients, because the things that you hear that moment when the buyer goes, oh yeah, but that producer, that SME knows, they just take it for granted.
Right.
So getting a way to capture some of that knowledge. And then the other thing, as a marketer, if you have access, if you're doing good SEO, use SEO to get topic ideas. So I think people often think about SEO in the sense of, we want to be found on this term. If someone searches for B2B, medical malpractice, whatever, workers' comp, whatever term, they worry about the product. The really fun thing about like a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs though, is you can go look at a general topic and look at the volume. What are people looking for?
Right.
And then answer that question. Right. Answer that question instead of thinking about what you want to shove down their throat. Think about the product page, the transactional stuff. Like look and see, after a hurricane, it's like you can see the spikes where business owners are searching for information about how, how to sort of deal with claims and what's covered and what's not covered. If you're not publishing content on that, you're out of the conversation. Like totally. You can be that responsive.
Totally.
That's a more sophisticated level though of that. Just read people's social.
No, it's really about coming from a place of being helpful instead of being salesy. And we've said that in so many ways. You and I have said that in so many ways in the last, 40 minutes. But that's really what the bottom line is. How can you be helpful? How can you provide value instead of just selling? And that's what people are looking for today. There's so much content out there, like we've said. There's so many businesses out there that do what you do. The person that's being helpful and offering answers before having a sales conversation, that's the person that's winning.
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because, as you mentioned, we've been talking about this for 40 minutes. And we do have some good questions in here. And I think one of them also actually speaks to this types of content. And we touched on this a little bit. There's SEO content. There's thought leadership content. I want to jump in. I want to answer a quick question right quick from April. And she's new from insurance marketing after being in bank marketing. And she's in a tension between people who they want to keep it behind a portal. And I would say this is true. This is something that financial services does and insurance. This idea that we can't give away our expertise because that's our secret sauce. And while I believe there is a role for content locked behind a portal, a client portal, that can be a way, that's a type of content. It can be sticky. Maybe you give clients access to things first, that's part of what they're buying. But I would argue if you're doing that, I hope that's priced, that's a product. That's actually no longer marketing. And I hope that you have that kind of fit in a different sort of model. But if everything is behind the wall, you've given me no opportunity. That's great for stickiness and retention. That is terrible for new client acquisition.
Agreed.
So,
And I want to say one more point to what you're saying. I find I've spoken to businesses that have one content arm that's meeting the needs of new potential customers and one content arm that's meeting the needs of existing customers. And I have to tell you, I think it's, unless in very specific situations it could work, but in most situations it doesn't make sense. And the reason is, I have news for you. The people who are your existing customers mirror the people who are your potential customers. So they have the same issues. They both want to know about the latest regulation. They both want to know what they should do if their business is in the path of a hurricane. They both want to know how to do X, Y, and Z, or how to fix something, or what a best practice for something is, or what type of insurance, or what the exclusions are in this type of policy. Everybody needs to know that same thing. So I don't know, everyone divides their marketing teams differently, but I definitely would urge people to see their existing customers as the same type of people as their prospects.
They really are. When you split it up like that, what you've really done is made it really inefficient. Like, there's a good chance you're going to be doubling. You're going to see a lot of duplicative work. There's a good chance you might be working cross each other. I mean, you're going to have to add a new layer. I've seen teams go back and forth on this at the enterprise level. It's like, okay, this is internal and this is inside this business. As somebody who often floats around inside large insurance companies working on different pieces of their marketing, I'm often astounded to get in there and discover it's like, oh, you did a survey on that, like it's internal. Did you know that your colleague over and so also did this and it was external? And they're like, no, who is that?
Right.
You know, the ENTJ in me, you know, so my idea of hell, I came across this years ago and I still laugh at it. It's like ENTJ, and it was like types of hell. And mine was somebody somewhere is doing something they shouldn't be, and they're doing it really inefficiently. That's what happens when I die. Like, that's what I'm trapped in. And that's what that sounds like to me.
Oh, that's your worst nightmare. Mary Ellen, we're getting insight into your worst nightmare.
It's my psyche. Oh my God. Like, you shouldn't be doing it at all. But if you're going to do it, oh God, please don't do it twice.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I'm sorry I'm laughing at your worst nightmare, but that's
no. It's okay. It's just like but somehow that's my job, is to ferret that out, because I can't stand it. I can't stand it. So let's talk about different kinds of content, because I told y'all my definition, like, around thought leadership. It's like, you got to be able to argue with it, but you have a great framework where you kind of walk through the types of content that we create. So I'm going to put myself on mute here for a second and let you walk through this.
Oh, that's fine. Sure. So I just gave 2 examples here, but one of the things that I'm seeing is super popular, actually. There's actually some data around it, which I didn't include here, but ebooks are like one of the most downloaded forms of content today. White papers, it's a similar idea. We can debate the differences, but for all intents and purposes, they're very similar. I'm seeing a surge in businesses that want to do this. To talk about our repurposing before, also, we're helping businesses create these bigger pieces, these white papers, these ebooks, and then you can dial it down. You can create 3 blogs from it. You can create, 10 LinkedIn posts that, again, link to the ebook or link to the blogs that then also link to the ebook. There's kind of like a web of content that you can create from a huge piece that's a deep dive. Now, the deep dive, I think, supports this conversation we were having before about people want help. They're looking for help in the topic that they're worried about, what's keeping them up at night. If you're answering that question, it's hard to answer it in a very short piece. It's a lot easier to answer it in a piece where you can include statistics, some industry news, sidebars. You can see there's a ton of visualization when you have longer form content. And I think that helps people so much. And as a marketer, there's so much you can do with a longer piece of content. Like I said, you can pull it apart, repurpose it. There's so much to do. So we're big fans of the ebook or white paper. Again, like I said, they're different and there's so much to talk about in them. But without splitting them apart, I do think that there's a lot that they both can do, in this vein. And a lot of businesses are interested in them right now, and rightfully so, because it's one of the most popular forms of content today. Okay, here's another idea. This is something I'm working on with all of my clients now. We're kind of in the middle of the end of the year time period. We've done a bunch of these for clients. We're still working kind of on the tail end, but everybody wants to know what's next. In today's world, there's so much unknown, right? We're kind of at the brink of, I don't know, an economic something, I don't want to say, but let's say, who knows what's coming next. And of course, nobody has a crystal ball. As you can see, one of my clients, this outlook we did for them last year, we kind of joked, with him holding a crystal ball. So nobody holds a crystal ball, but certainly the events and things that have happened this past year inform what's going to be next year. And so that's really where we start with the outlook. We have a lot of clients working on this right now. It's something we totally recommend people do. like we said, everybody wants to trust you. Everyone wants to know why you're the expert and what your expertise is. Well, let them know in an industry outlook. Tell them what you think is going to happen next year. Tell them how you think something that happened this year is going to continue to play out in the next 6 months. Let them know. And again, this could be something as simple as just taking the big buckets of pain points that your clients have and feeling out each one of them. How is supply chain going to play out in the next year? How are cat claims going to play out in the next year? We just had this big hurricane. How is that going to affect insurance pricing? It could be something as basic as that. People want to hear that. So an Outlook is an amazing tool and really vehicle to give that its ultimate thought leadership. It could be assigned to just one or two people at your firm, whether that's an SME or the CEO or president. That's who's doing a lot of these, the names kind of that we're putting with a lot of these. We may be interviewing an expert, but putting the president or CEO's name on it. We might be, some of them are by vertical. You can see here, these are two examples of ones that we did last year, but let's say real estate, wealth management. Some of them are very specific to business units, and some of them are the whole business is doing them. So it really just depends on how your business is organized. But this is something that we really, really recommend. And we've gotten almost every one of our clients to get on board with us, and they're doing them. And it's phenomenal. These can also be repurposed, not just on your website and not just sent out in your email newsletters, but we pitch these out to magazines very often. And the trade magazines are very interested in this kind of stuff. They're interested in publishing it in December. They're interested in publishing it in January and February. It's not old news in the beginning of the year. The other thing is, like we just said with the ebooks, you can take a huge long outlook that covers, 4 or 5 buckets of an industry and just pull pieces apart that go and pitch those to, specific magazines, trade magazines, or industry publications, industry newsletters. There's so much you can do with something like this. This is a phenomenal piece of thought leadership. Okay, I've talked a lot, Mary Ellen. You've gotten a break. I hope you got something to drink. Oh, you're still muted.
Yes. And then, right. And then Josh asked what we thought about use case libraries. And I'm going to say, I love them because this goes back to the story. Because What I need, yes, show me the data, right, and put the data in there. But what people really want is that story. And the other thing, that use case library. So people come in, what I find is nobody wants to know what you do in general. They want to know what you can do for people and businesses like theirs. And so if you can write those use cases to really focus on, to tell that story, the story here is in the specificity. I don't need to know that in general you do, commercial liability. I need to know what you did, for this construction company that transformed the way that they do business and the way that they serve their clients in using your your approach. Get specific. Get really specific about it. And the more of them, the better. If you have time for nothing else, if you're trying to figure out what to do, if you've got a limited budget, what kind of content that we create, I would tell you it is lovely to have big, crazy thought leadership pieces. Love them. Love the big surveys. Love the outlooks. If you've got time for nothing else, make case studies and use cases until you can't make them anymore.
Right.
Just do that. If you did just that, because if you make those are great on social. You can tag your clients. You can put those in emails. People never get tired of reading that. The number one thing people care about is whether there's 2 things. I remember at South by Southwest years ago, they were talking about social media, and I went to this presentation about this with this neuroscientist, and he said there's 2 reasons why people get on social. One is to see what people are saying about them, right? So if you tag someone, they want to say, what were you saying about me? The other thing is to see what people are saying about people they don't like.
Oh my God. It's only you or people they don't like.
Let's extend that to people just your competition, right? Or just people that you're up against again. But it was really funny. It's people you don't like, because we do love to hate read. We like that. After that, it's people that we do like. People that we do like come after people that we don't like. It's ooh, what is she doing now?
That's so funny. That's really funny.
So this is Penelope Trump's entire brand. It's what did she say? What? And I know you want to think that it's insurance and it's not like that, but no, it's not. So use cases. If you got nothing else in you, go all in on those use cases.
Right.
And then start to kind of work on some of these other pieces. The other content I want to talk about in the time we have is SEO. And because there's a little bit of a myth that people think that in B2B that people aren't searching for content in this way. They're like, the head of risk would never search for this topic. And I am here to tell you, after many, many hours of looking inside SEMrush data, they absolutely do. People ask Google things they don't want to ask their colleagues. The things that people search for, they ask some very strange things, and they might not be high volume. I think this is another thing when you get into B2B SEO, it's not the same as B2C. You're not looking for, oh man, this has 20,000 search terms per month. There's nothing that I sell that has 20,000 search terms per month. No one's searching like that. But you will find people looking for ways to, what is a risk manager? This is an exercise in empathy, fundamentally. When you start to think about what information are they looking for?
Right.
And then the other thing to keep in mind is, while your chief risk officer might not be searching for those things, the person who's 3 levels below them still is, and they're scared to ask their boss. So they're going to Google it. And so you want to make sure that they find your content when they enter it, because risk managers become risk directors, become chief risk officers. Nobody wakes up and goes, hot damn, I am now the head of risk for a global Fortune 500 company. Like, nobody's born that way. You don't hatch out of an egg. That's not a Pokemon that like an insurance agent's going to go catch, right? They have to, this is a long play. It's a long play. So put it out there and let that, like, not quite your ICP find the content and read it, so that when they do get that promotion and they are the decider, you're the one they call. And so I think SEO isn't about stuffing a bunch of keywords and stuff. It really goes right back to that same model that we talked about earlier. I say it's about strong expertise, high authority, and trustworthiness. And this is why you can see how Mindi and I became friends on the internet, because we're really pushing toward the same thing here. And it's true for SEO just as it's true for the big fancy report.
Yeah, and I think SEO needs to be seen as a strategy. Obviously, we've talked about it's not the be all end all strategy. It is a strategy. And the other thing I want to add is, if you know your marketing numbers, you know how people are finding you. So that's another thing. Each business is going to be found in different ways. And so if you can figure out how people are finding you, then you can angle your content towards meeting that. So if people are finding you on the internet from internet searches, then SEO should be a major tactic that you're employing.
It's not a fast one. I would say if you're coming in cold from this, you need to give yourself 6 to 9 months to get good traction if you're really focused on putting out good content. But I do want to answer a question somebody asked in the thread about how long, because we were saying leave it out there, put those guides and leave them up. And they said, how long should you do that? And the answer to this question is actually as long as it's useful. And useful, you can extend the usefulness of the lifetime usefulness of this content. Don't delete it, update it. So like these Outlook pieces that Mindi is showing you, it's like you can do a 2001 Outlook, and then there's going to be a 2002 and 2003. Absolutely. So, I mean, I know in my case, I put out a guide, like a guide to financial services when I started the business 10 years ago. And if I rewrote that now, which we would have to talk about robo-advisors, which we're not so come back, don't delete it. Look at it, take a look, audit your content. Depending on the size of your team, you should be auditing it every 3 months, every 6 months. There are tools you can use to kind of continuously do that and kind of bubble things up for you. But, at least once a year, drop dead once a year, ideally quarterly, look in there and see what's out of date and update that. Don't make something new, update the old thing.
And updating can just be sometimes changing the stats. There could be, this is the same issue that was going on 3 years ago. We just need new statistics because it looks old when you see something saying 2017. The other thing that I've done a bunch of updating for companies is, if you wrote content pre-COVID, it may just be it just may be outdated just because of the language. The whole world has changed. The way everything happens has changed, especially in insurance. Things have changed so much. So if you've got old content that's still has a good topic, it just some of the language may need to be massaged to show that it's much more current. So something as silly as stats or just changing some of the language, it doesn't have to be a big lift. Updating your content it doesn't have to be reinventing the wheel, like doing.
It's easier than starting over. And you likely already have some SEO juice. So if you use something like SEMrush, it'll bubble up things for you like, hey, here's what we recommend that you update. It's usually a combination of what's the volume, and what is, do you already have some traction? Because it's much easier to go from ranking number 60 on a term to ranking 10 than it is to go from 0 to 100. It's like once you're in there, you don't ever want to let that go. So keep going. The other thing you
keep your
mentioned,
page. That's the other piece. People don't realize. Right. Don't just take this and go to a new URL. You won't be able to keep that status that you have. You have to keep that same page and just update there. Exactly.
The other thing, and I know we have like exactly 1 minute, but I would say a good example of how this changed, if you want to think about the specific to insurance, because we had to do a piece like this recently for a client, and it was about remote work for insurance. And we managed to grab the top term on that like pretty quickly, because all of the other pieces, there was a lot of content around remote work for agents and producers. But if it was written pre-pandemic, it was written like it was exotic. Like you could allow this if you do these things, like, and very much like you were doing them a favor. Whereas like, it's like, oh no, that's not the reality here anymore. This isn't how do we work with compliance and how do we allow this? It became like, okay, this is our normal now. How do we integrate this into the way we think about work? People are not coming back to the office. Like, how do we do this? So in that case, we did have to update some numbers, but I mean, that's a complete change in perspective.
Right.
About what am I going to do about remote work? It is no longer, am I going to allow it? It's going to be like, well, people are not coming back to the office. So what are we going to do?
It's a totally different language. And you sound tone deaf if you don't have the language that's for today. If somebody's reading it today, they don't want to see something that was from yesterday.
And I know we said questions here, but we took them kind of in line, which I always think is more fun anyway. I'm going to wrap up here. Mindi, what's the best way for people to find you if they have some specific questions and things they want to follow up with you?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Mindi Zissman, Zissman Media, either way. Definitely my website is zissmanmedia.com. That's also my email address is there, mzissman@zissmanmedia. Those are always, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on email all day. So feel free to reach out. Love to meet everybody. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I would say her LinkedIn is like the best free marketing course you're going to get on insurance for content marketing. She talks about it all day, every day. It's amazing.
Hey, thank you. I love that. Thanks for
it's like a free class. It's like a free class.
That's the best word of mouth advice ever.
And then I'm Mary Ellen. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or you can learn more about what we do on repcap.com, And I think I just want to thank everybody for coming and spending the time with us, today. We are going to send out a recording. You will be able to access the recording. And we're also going to throw in some additional resources, both for RepCap. We got some stuff from Mindi. Like, you should totally connect with us. And if you have questions about this, do not hesitate to reach out. Like, as you can see, we really like talking about content for insurance.
We're major nerds. We put on our nerdy.
Yeah, we own it. It's the type of nerd. The type of nerd that we are. So thanks everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I appreciate it. This was awesome.